Good evening and welcome to the next part of our series in the Mortal Kombat Franchise Documentary. I'm delighted to be joined by the one and only Lynn Red Williams, who played the character Jax in Mortal Kombat Annihilation. And I suppose, Lynn, the first question that I asked everyone so far, Mortal Kombat, it's almost become a bigger than its parts in terms of it started off as a computer game, as a comic sort of franchise, then it went on to the movie world, and 30 years on since the original movies, it's still going as strong as ever. It's computer sales over worldwide are through the roof. It's comic book franchises through the roof. And obviously, and with that, it comes a new movie in early January next year. But for you, I suppose Mortal Kombat is like James Bond, it seems. It's sort of, once you're part of the furniture, you'll always be there. And you're part of the Mortal Kombat Illuminati. You played the character Jackson. How proud are you to be part of the Mortal Kombat franchise?
I was proud at the beginning, but now that I have grandchildren now, the pride is through the roof. I'm so glad that I've been able to be immortalized, so to speak, on film in such a great franchise, and my grandchildren's children will be able to see who I am, you know? So I'm very grateful and I feel very proud.
I suppose, Lynn, the Mortal Kombat fan base is enormous all over the world, not only in America, but in Europe, in China, in Australia. And with the new computer games, obviously, and the mention of the new movie, people are going back and they're watching the old movies in tens and thousands of people in the last months alone are watching the old Mortal Kombat and the old Mortal Kombat Annihilation. So a new crowd, a new audience are watching your movies that weren't even born in 1997. How does that make you feel that a new younger generation are seeing you perform Jax and they recognize your name as Jax in Mortal Kombat Annihilation, and that the movies 20 years on is still playing even to this day all over the world?
There are no words to tell you how grateful I am that, again, like you just said, people that were not even born can watch the movie and see who I am. And you know what's funny is that I could go outside and see a UPS driver or a FedEx driver or a mailman, and they're in their mid-30s, and they'll take a double take. Hey, man, are you Jax from Mortal Kombat? So the game is getting more popular. I think that the movie, when they come back now, since you can put more real violence inside of movies now, it's going to be bigger than ever. It won't be as corny, for lack of a better word, than it was in the past. I think they can go hard with it now. I mean, we're living in an age where war games on video are the most popular games, so people can take it now. So I think that it's going to be bigger than it's ever been, but at the same time, every time the new franchise comes out and it's bigger than the previous, that makes our popularity rise. So I think it's going to continue to grow.
And I suppose, Lynn, in terms of Mortal Kombat, we know it's very much based on the martial arts. It's the human mortal element with the special sort of powers on top of it as well. The sort of fire, wind, ice, snow sort of ground ability. And in terms of trying out and getting cast for Mortal Kombat, did you have a bit of a martial arts background, or were you put through martial arts testing? I know some of the characters that got the part went through rigorous martial arts sort of routines, and some of the best martial artists in the entire world went on audition for Mortal Kombat.
I definitely have been doing martial arts. Now, remember, I grew up in the Bruce Lee generation. So all of my friends and myself took some type of martial arts lessons. My first lessons were with Chuck Norris at the Chuck Norris Studios in Torrance, California. I was coming off of a television series that was pretty famous around the world. It was called The American Gladiators.
Okay.
And The American Gladiators I was the most popular male, and I say that only because that's what they would say every time I would get sent to a personal appearance. They would announce me as the most popular male gladiator. And we were retiring. My uniform had just got retired in a Hollywood franchise in a restaurant franchise called Planet Hollywood.
Yeah.
Where they have a lot of famous television and movie memorabilia. So they retired my first uniform in Planet Hollywood. And there was a guy named Adam Jordan who worked with the American Gladiators. And he says, Red, you have such a personality and a look. I need to take you to meet some people. So he said, get dressed. So I got dressed, and he came to pick me up, and he took me to these offices in Beverly Hills and Santa Monica. And one of these offices he took me to was a producer named Ann D'Amato. And when I went to see Ann, I sat down to talk to her, and she asked me, did I bring any photographs? So I said, yes, I did. I left them with your assistant. And she got on the intercom and told her assistant to bring the photos to her. And she said, I'm sorry, Miss D'Amato, I took the photos back to casting. So she called casting to get the photos back, and the people in casting wanted to see me. So she said, go on and talk to them. So I went to casting. They gave me some sides to read. I read the sides. They asked me about my fighting background. I told them that I had even created my own martial arts system. I called it body warfare. And they wanted me to fight on the screen. So I had to fight on video camera, just do a kata or some type of simulated fighting. They asked me to come back in a couple hours to meet the director. So I went back to meet the director. He asked the same things, my fighting background and would I fight on video camera for him. So I did it. He asked me to come back that evening to meet the producers of the movie. I did. Same thing. Show me your fighting style. What is your fighting background? We have an idea that maybe your character would be shirtless for the last half of the movie, so we'd like to see your body. I read the lines. I did a simulated fight on camera off the top of my head. And after that meeting that day, they told me they wanted me to be Jax in Mortal Kombat Annihilation. So after that, it was the rigorous training that you heard about, and it was tough. They sent me to work out with their karate people. I got to spar with Master No-No, who's a Gracie Jiu-Jitsu black belt instructor. So it was very real. And for the upcoming actors for this new movie, I'm sure they're going to make you work out. And if you don't have a martial arts background, don't worry. By the time you're finished, you'll be pretty good at it.
Yeah, and I suppose, Lynn, you spoke about that vigorous training, and I remember speaking to Keith Cook, and he told me the fight scene between Reptile and Robin Shaw in the original sort of Mortal Kombat movie, that took over a month in terms of choreography and rehearsal, and in terms of angle shots, and the amount of times they had to redo every bit of parts and every bit of take, that each sequence, each kick, each throw, each symbol had to be done in several different angles and had to be done multiple times. How long did your fight scene in terms of it take place? Was it the same thing? Was it a week, or was it your part in your big fight scene in Mortal Kombat Annihilation?
Because I didn't do any tricky flips, or I didn't do any what's the word? Mine wasn't real imaginative. It was really down to earth. I liked most of it. I would have liked to have had a bigger hand in choreographing some of my fights, but my fights didn't take 3 or 4 days to actually choreograph and film. The only time it took more than that was if you had to fight over and over again because of the different camera angles. You know, you got to get it from the front, you have to get it from the back, you have to get it sometimes from the top, but mine were not that complicated.
And I suppose, Lynn, we have to talk about now those prosthetic hands and in what the bionic sort of hands that you had. What was it like to wear? What was it made of? How did it feel on top? Was it like wearing a concrete block and did it go from your elbow all the way to your hand and was it screwed on by bolts, or what did it look, what did it appear like? Or what, obviously we see it on the screen and it seems to be this mighty contraption, but what was it actually like, and how long did it take to get on and get off, and was it uncomfortable?
First off, I have to correct you, sir.
Yeah.
Not bionic. They were cybernetic strength enhancers.
Cybernetic strength enhancers. Okay.
So that's what Jax wears. Now, they were pretty heavy. They were made out of plastics and probably some carbon fiber, you know, whatever it is that they were making. I had to put on a powdery substance. Then I had to put on like a silk sleeve, and then you would slide the arms up, and it actually went all the way over to my shoulders and attached in the back so that both arms would be attached. And they had hand pieces and everything. So it was a pretty spectacular piece of equipment. And I really hate, I'm telling you now, I hate that I did not get a set of arms for my own.
All right. Be worth a lot of money.
Maybe, man, but somebody kept them. You know what I mean? Somebody kept them. Why not give me a set of arms?
Yeah. And I suppose, Lynn, in terms of the camaraderie on set, in terms of Mortal Kombat Annihilation, I mentioned this to Brian Thompson at the time in relation to I know Lyndon Asby was in the first movie, Mortal Kombat, who played Johnny Cage, and obviously they couldn't come to agreement with him and the producers for him to come back in the second movie. And it sort of shocked the whole sort of Mortal Kombat fan base in the universe that Johnny Cage was murdered right at the start of the movie. In some way, it sort of it was shocking all, but it also turned some fans against the sort of movie in itself in terms of its popularity. And I suppose in hindsight, do you think that probably killing Johnny Cage off so early on in the movie, do you think it was probably a bad decision in terms of the popularity of the movie in terms of going forward? Now, the movie was a popular movie, but that sort of scene seemed to take away the gloss from it.
I don't think that had anything to do with the box office. I actually believe that the curiosity was there and the excitement was there originally out the gate because we opened up #1 at the box office. I think that we missed the mark on some of the visual effects. I think that some of those things might have hurt our popularity in the movie theaters. But I don't think actually killing off Johnny Cage at the beginning had a major part to do with the box office, even though if I was Johnny Cage, I would say, yes, that definitely had a lot to do with it. And as far as the camaraderie goes, we stayed in a hotel when we were in Thailand. We stayed there for about 3 months. And they had a bowling alley at the bottom of the hotel. And every night, James Raymar, Brian Thompson, and myself, we would have bowling matches that would rival any of the Professional Bowlers Association matches. Right. I averaged over 200 bowling, and I would have to say the same for James Raymar and Brian Thompson. We battled every night. So the camaraderie was there, and we're still friends to this day.
And I suppose, Lynn, in terms of Mortal Kombat, and I suppose the character Jax, you have a renowned acting career. You've been involved in an awful lot of projects. Have you ever played a character similar to Jax in your career? And does it sort of stand out and still have a special place in your heart, sort of thing, the character Jax? Or is it fond memories for you, that whole Mortal Kombat Annihilation? Was it a fun time in your career and a fun project to be involved in?
It was a spiritual experience for me. Remember now, we went to some of the most spiritual places on earth in order to film a story about spiritual redemption and that type of thing. So we went to the temples in Thailand, Bangkok, and Ayutthaya. We went to the temples in Jordan, the scene where Shao Kahn destroys the temples. That was really in Jordan. So we got to pray. I got to pray in the temples of Petra and the temples of Jordan and the Dead Sea in Israel. So now I'm a Rabbiya, which is a teacher of Yahweh. That's what I do now for a living. I've left Hollywood and now I'm on the spiritual walk. If I was to go back to Hollywood, it would have to be only in projects that I would agree with, something positive. I love being a positive influence in the world community. So I really, really, really am so grateful for the producers of Mortal Kombat Annihilation for allowing me to be a part of it. I can't wait to see and try to do it again.
And I suppose, Lynn, in terms of, lastly, you mentioned, you probably answered my question for me. If a cameo role was happened to come up about a minute or two, or 5 minutes sort of cameo role in the new Mortal Kombat movie, after all these years, would you like to step out and on that sort of franchise again? Or obviously you mentioned there your religion is very important to you. Would you just prefer to sit and watch the new generation of Mortal Kombat? Or as I said, if an opportunity came about to have a cameo role, it's just something we've asked the rest of the fellow cast members we've interviewed so far.
I would always be open to helping further the Mortal Kombat franchise. I would definitely be open to that. You had asked me another question a minute ago, and I got away from it. Was there another role similar to that I played in some of the other movies? There was a television role that I played, a character called the Black Knight. He was a superhero. Okay. The series was called Nightman, and I played a hero called the Black Knight. And there were talks about a spinoff for that back in the days. And so, yeah, maybe I got typecast a little bit as this macho guy, but that's okay. You know, The Rock is doing all right with typecasting. So, you know, I like being positive. I like being known as tough. I like being known as fair, you know. So I am very, very proud to be Jax from Mortal Kombat. And that's something you can never take away from me. I'm Jax from Mortal Kombat Annihilation, Jackson Briggs, Briggs, Jackson Briggs.
And I suppose, Lynn, for the last 30 seconds now, you are one of the original Jax, and I suppose I just want to ask you, you know the Jax character better than most. You've been him, you've stood in his shoes, you've wore his arms. In terms of what advice would you give to the next actor who will play Jax in the Mortal Kombat a new movie, and what would you like to see? Where would you think you would like to see the Jax character go? And in terms of that, are you sort of fulfilled? Did the Jax character fulfill you in Mortal Kombat Annihilation, and you think there's still more to the story left to be written in terms of Jackson Briggs?
There's a lot of story. We didn't get into a lot of Jax's backstory. And, you know, me playing the character, I did a little research on Jax. For the new character, for the new person playing Jax, remember, Jax is tough, but Jax has a personality. Jax is kind of funny without even trying to be funny. You know, he's matter of fact. He's the toughest guy in the universe, not just the world. He was the toughest guy in the world, but then when he went to left Earth, he became the baddest dude everywhere. So remember, he's bad, he's confident, he's funny. Even when he's fighting and destroying, he can still come up with a one-liner that lets you know that he doesn't take it that serious, even though it is serious.
On that note, Lynn Red Williams, a pleasure talking to you this evening in the next of our series, Mortal Kombat Franchise Documentary, to speak to Lynn Red Williams, who played the one and only Jackson Briggs in Mortal Kombat Annihilation. And Lynn, you look at peace at your new career, and no doubt still you don the t-shirt now as a Mortal Kombat alumni, as sort of the Hall of Fame, the original cast, and no doubt you'll have the popcorn out and the drinks out, and you can bring your whole, whether you bring your family with you or not, and enjoy the 21st century episode of the new Mortal Kombat. But for you, you will always be remembered as Jackson Briggs and Mortal Kombat alumni. And for that, Lynn Williams, we thank you. God bless, and have a good day.
Thank you very, very much. I appreciate it. And you take care of yourself, and y'all bless also.
Fight.